Welcome back to Business Week here on Arise News. I'm joined now by Eizu Uwaoma, who is founder and managing director of Xavier Consulting, to review some of our top stories in more detail. Good morning to you, Eizu. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Always a pleasure to have you on here. So let's begin with oil prices. It's been, as we all know, a very volatile week, if we have to say. But of course, we saw this prices spike more than 3% on Thursday. Yeah. Let's talk about the reactions to that. That, of course, is quite reactionary, as we expect. But then we also saw a drop again yesterday.
Absolutely. We forget the history. Like, as things change, everything will always remain the same.
Yeah.
Human nature. We've always run a war economy, from the Greek to the Roman Empire to the colonization of Europeans, right? And beyond every war, there's profit. So that's just how it works. Fundamentally, what's happening with Iran is the fact that Iran is so strategic that the third largest oil-producing OPEC nation and among the top 10 globally. So that's very natural for the market to react that way. There are winners and there are losers in every game. Right, so I hope that the winners will take great cognizance and leverage on it. Nigeria, for example, is supposed to be a winner because 70% or 80% of our oil, of all of our export earnings, come from oil production, and an increase in oil per barrel. Right, what it means for us is that we have an opportunity to have more revenue. It's happened in the 90s, right, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and of course that created a large windfall for a lot of Nigerian revenue. So it's a win. My biggest fear is not even the 10% increase in the spike of oil per barrel, is what happens if Iran decides to retaliate and probably take shots that affect there's a strategic location called the Strait of Hormuz. If that ever happens, right, you're going to have a higher spike. We're just hoping that doesn't happen, because that particular route, it's a geopolitical route around the Pacific Ocean. It's a headway. If that happens, what's going to happen is that you're going to have over 20%, right? 20% of the whole oil transportation that happens globally happens around that strait. And Iran is better positioned in terms of conflict to retaliate. We're still waiting for Iran's retaliation, and Iran is not a small fry. So, like I've always said, the world has always run a war economy. We have to understand that. And we owe the biggest innovations on earth to wars. Don't forget that if there was no Second World War, you'd have had internet, if you know the history, right? So we're hoping that while this is happening, the conflict does not just create victory, it creates progress for us all. But for people like Nigeria, I think it's good for us, because in the real sense of it, we reduce our fuel importation thanks to Dangote refinery, and we've increased our exports thanks to our BPD, barrel per production, right? So I think that's extremely important. So good news, in my own opinion, for the people who are winners, the oil producers, because now you have a higher price for petrol, for crude oil. That's the barrel per price. But I think that's fundamental what it is. But we're looking forward to seeing a country and a world that is more at peace with itself. But more importantly, as things change, everything will always remain the same. That's how it is. The war economy falls the world, and I don't know why people haven't come to terms with that. What we just need to do is to make sure that at any given point we're recalibrating our base on an economics perspective, and that's my own view on this.
Right, and it all depends on what side of the wall you're standing on, and of course
Absolutely.
Some very legitimate concerns about a potential retaliation. But of course we're hoping that things don't get a little more inflammatory than they already have. Let's look at Japan describing trade talks with the U.S. as being in a fog. What does that translate into? And where does it stem from?
There's history between Japan and America. It's always been like that, right? You see, the thing about life is that Japan and America has always been like a bittersweet relationship. Right. Don't forget that the Ford's biggest competitor in America will be Toyota, right? Even in gaming, Xbox, which is Microsoft America's biggest competitor, will be PlayStation, Sony. America and Japan has always had that feud. What they mean by foggy is that there seems to be no direction to the negotiation, and also no direction and timeline to all of that. I think that what's going to happen in the end is not victory, it's progress. Both parties, America and Japan, need each other more than ever. But Japan has a small clause. They are going into elections in the next few weeks. So what they'll do is try to manage that relationship till that happens. Nobody wants to shake too much tables in the middle of an election period, right? So America needs America more than America probably needs. America needs Japan more than Japan actually needs America. That's the truth. Because if you take away Japan from the map right now and Taiwan from the map, you see that the biggest ally America needs right now for Asia, especially with the American-Chinese field, will probably be Japan and Taiwan. So shout out to Japan. We owe the world's greatest innovations and reliability products, from Toyota to Honda to Sony to Hitachi, to Japan. So Japan is in the right place. They should not accept a 25 to 24% right tariff. I don't think they should, right? In every negotiation, you're not on the table on the menu. So I hope they're not on the menu being eaten, but on the table with the ones that are going to eat. The ultimate goal of every negotiation is not victory, it's progress. And I hope Japan understands that.
I love the anecdotes. I love that you always bring those. Chief negotiator here. Yeah. Well, we have some time. Let's look at the Dangote refinery. This has been quite anticipated. Set to begin petrol and diesel distribution from August 15th. What should we know about this?
I don't know why nobody's giving Dangote the credit he deserves, right? That guy is creating disruption. Are they not? He's creating disruption. He's making markets obsolete. Just him going into distribution in itself, what it means technically is that he's about to kill depots, terminals, right, and tank farms, and that in itself is powerful. I mean, this guy has put over 400 billion on buying 4,000 new CNG trucks. That's sarcastically speaking, because how do you buy CNG trucks to transport petrol and diesel by trucks that don't use petrol and diesel? But what it shows you is that he's thinking strategically off his sleeves, and he still has a lot of things up that sleeve. He can do credit because he has a large amount of money. He can also do, to a large extent, free delivery. So I think, in my own opinion, this century is going to end with Dangote probably being the greatest entrepreneur Africa has ever seen, right? We're going to see a drop on pricing. What he's trying to do is kill the middleman. There's no middleman, because right now from Dangote refinery, it means that you can supply straight up to the filling station, straight up to the factory, straight up to the airports and the airlines in terms of aviation fuel. So I think that's powerful in itself. My fear is hopefully there will be other people to compete eventually, because monopoly is always bad for a country, right? Because a monopoly is that part where you increase price and you don't lose customers because you don't have any other option, right? But in the end, if I was Dangote, I'll be proud of myself. But I'm hoping that there could be more things that would happen. I mean, Boa is building his own refinery in Calabar. I'm hoping that the Kaduna and the Port Harcourt refinery moves beyond their 10% production capacity. Too much grammar, too much audio promises. But if that happens, then it evens up. In the end, the biggest winners are Nigerians.
Absolutely.
And congrats to Dangote.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, lots to be proud of, like you mentioned. And of course, there's always room for competition. Just makes things healthier. If you joined us midway, I've been chatting with Eizu Uwaoma, Managing Director of Eizu Consulting. Eizu, I want to thank you so much, and we'll see you again very soon.